All right, this one is going to be a little more off the cuff. I think it would help to explain more what I mean by we're better off alone, or the natural state is smaller. Um, Claims like these that I suppose are vague on their own. Um, so I want to sort of outline my worldview here a little bit more, historically and in the current context. Um, I don't believe that it is realistic to think that vastly different groups of people, be it geographically or based on their resources or industries, um, their cultural backgrounds historically, their language, their core values. Um, I don't think that you can take large groups of people who differ so greatly, lump them into one spot and say, we're all going to do things the same way and we're going to be happy about it. I think this is obvious historically. Um, One of the great contributors to the fall of Rome ultimately was that it was far too vast with far too many cultures across, you know, geographical barriers, um, and they had to hold it together. And people compete. They have different values, so they compete for language, they compete for culture, they compete for resources, they compete for trade, they compete for the things that are going to benefit them where they are now, and that's understandable. I'm sure you're all familiar with tribalism. Tribalism isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, your core tribe is your family, and then it's your friends, then it's your neighbors, it's the people in your city, it's the people in your province, then it's the people in the provinces next to you, and then it's the people on the other side of the country, and then it's countries neighboring you, um, or that you have close political ties with, and then it's the rest of the world. And let's be realistic, that's the way it is. If you're going to tell me that you're more concerned um, about someone in a developing country than you are the children in your home or the neighbor on your street, um, yeah, call me an asshole. I'm not going to buy it. It doesn't mean that those people aren't important. It doesn't mean that those people don't deserve, at some point, the same comfort of life that we're living, and we should work towards that. But realistically, you got to take care of your own first. And that's what people do. They do that. They've done that in every empire that's ever existed. And is Canada an empire in the traditional sense? No. We're a young country, but we span a geographical area that would rival almost any historical empire. We are increasingly culturally different. That's not going away. And I mean, Canada's a perfect example of that. We've got an entire province, Quebec, that has worked so hard to preserve their culture that they wouldn't melt into, the pot that we call Canada. And why would it be any different out here? Why would it be any different for the Inuit in the north? Why would it be any different for those in the lower mainland? Why would it be any different across this country? And we're talking about big differences. We're talking about the prairie provinces, which were primarily settled by Germans and Eastern Europeans, exiles from the Soviet Union, who broke the land and built it up, and largely in poverty. And then, sure, we got lucky with oil, but we built that up too, and we had to bring other people in to help with the load. And we brought in Punjabs, and we brought in Filipinos. We brought in people who arguably come from similar backgrounds, have similar values to us, and fit into the culture really quite well, and are valued parts of Alberta. And I think largely hold Albertan views. I can't speak for all of them, but many that I do know are very like-minded. And the more Canadian they become, and their children become, and the generations become, the more Albertan they become. And they, in my experience, become as much or more Albertan than they are Canadian. This is the place that they are after all. And that being said, I suppose, after the ramble, is that ultimately, given enough time, our accents become more distinct. We develop dialects. Arguably, we already are. We speak differently. We think differently. We have different values. We have different goals. We have different futures in mind. And you can only unify that so much. The European Union, as an example as well, you've got a group of people who, again, over time, we're talking about a smaller geographical area where the cultures and languages and values and ideals, I mean, generally they're Western ideas, yes. So are the United States. So are Australia. Western countries generally share a basic set of principles. But the basic principles aren't enough to keep us all tied together as one. Norway didn't join the EU, as an example, despite being a westernized nation. Canada is not the 51st state. We are different, and we pride ourselves on being different. We want to be proud of being Canadians. Americans are proud of being Americans, a lot of them anyways, but even that's falling apart in certain parts of that country. But this is the natural way of things, and it's okay, and it's inevitable. It's the direction that we're going. So my view is, it's bad enough now that I want to start planning ahead. I want to start planning ahead for my kids, my grandkids, and their grandkids. And I think ultimately we should be smaller. I think there's some alliances or systems that should be in place, on a broader, sort of global scale that can be beneficial. But restrictions need to be put in play there. And I think that's, more detail for a future video. The EU, again, to reference it, maybe as a military protection system is not a bad idea. Perhaps even from a currency standpoint. But once you start putting those regulations that one region feels is wonderful on a region that it is detrimental to or counter to their value system, that's where you start to see that sort of bond pull apart and people want out because they're looking after their own. Anyways, that's kind of the worldview, roughly from a historical standpoint and a current situation standpoint. I hope gives you a broader idea of where I'm coming at from this, or why I'm coming at this from a very regional mindset, an increasingly regional mindset, and where we got to go. I was a devout federalist for some time. An angry one in some ways, in some situations, but I believed we could come out of it. I believed there was a path forward for the nation, and I just don't see it anymore. Um, it's just not an option anymore, and that's been made clear to us for us. Is the interesting thing. We've been trying. We've been trying to make a go of it in the West for the nation, and the nation keeps telling us they don't care, that they don't want what we offer. And so I say, if we're not wanted, let's figure out a way out. Take take from that what you will. Of course, I'll have plenty more to come.